Hey, you hosers.
Oh my gosh. Hang on. That's what you wanted to open up with?
Yeah.
Okay, one sec. I'm just going to fix something.
That was my idea from the very beginning. To start with an insult.
An insult.
An insult in the beginning.
All right, cool.
But a nice one, a mild one.
Yeah.
What does it mean, hosers?
Hosers means it's a Canadian hockey term. I had to look this up on Urban Dictionary.
Okay.
It's a Canadian hockey term from like back in the day before. Do you know what a Zamboni is?
No.
When you have like an ice rink, you want the surface of the ice to be smooth.
Ah, okay.
So you need to put like a layer of water over the ice to create like a new layer of ice that's more flat than after,
okay.
because after you skate over it, it turns like all rough and stuff.
Okay.
And back before Zambonis were a thing, so a Zamboni is like that big machine that you
The
drive.
machine, yeah. Okay.
So before those were around, I guess it was like the rule that the losing team would have to hose down the rink or whatever.
Ah, okay.
Like add water, and then they are called
Before they had
hosers.
any machines, or
Yeah,
how did they do it?
with the hose.
With the hose, just with the
Because like the idea is just to.
The other team was screaming like, "Hey, you hosers!"
I guess so.
They
I don't know.
lost,
Like I
and then-
wasn't around then, but that's what Urban Dictionary tells me, and therefore it's correct.
Ah, okay. I know it from tennis, where like the losing team has to like clean the nets, or not the nets, like the ash from the
Ash.
yeah, like if it's like red ash, you have to clean it from the linings.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That was kind of like also like a rule. I mean, it's it's a slight form of humiliation, but
Yeah.
Okay, so that term evolved from ice hockey pretty
Yeah.
much, right? And so that's also a term that comes from the national sports of Canada, right? So
Yeah.
our topic of today is these word concepts, interesting language, evolution of these words. Where do they come from? What do they mean? And we start with the hoser, and maybe we can find other examples from other languages, also from German. And I think language is such an interesting topic to talk about. Everybody can contribute. Everybody knows something about it. And when you came to Germany, did you find any like interesting words at first? Because you came and you didn't know so much German.
I like knew almost next to nothing with German. Let me think. Like particular words where I was like, like how this is not like a crazy word, but just the fact that like you say ora at the end of a
Ora,
sentence.
yeah.
Yeah, that means like or. So it's just because for me growing up, you would just say like, oh yeah, you're going to Canada, right? Like you just be like, right?
Yeah.
But
Oh hey.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
But here they say or, and that took me a while to like understand the meaning of it, because I don't use that in English typically. Well, now I do, because that just blended, like it bled onto English from German.
Yeah, actually, also for English, this right when you say something and you want to have the confirmation or affirmation of your partner. I didn't know that you in American English you say right more, and then in British English you say isn't it, or doesn't it, or something like that. And I think these small words are really important for a language, like or even saying like so often. Like I got used to it to using it so much, but when you learn,
Did you get it from me?
yeah, no, from the US, but I
Okay.
think when we talk we use it a lot. You also use it a lot.
I use it a lot.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Right.
Right.
Right. No, it's cool. I think it's just it makes the language more alive when you know these words, and when you add them to your repertoire. I think it's really cool.
The word I like in German is doch,
Doch.
which is just like what you say when you're negating a negative. So if someone says oh, you're not going to Canada? And you go, doch, doch. Yeah, I am.
Doch, doch, doch. Well, so what other... I remember you started with this saying for an apple and an egg, which is really not so used,
idioms.
But it's fun. Yeah, idioms. It's more like an idiom.
Doch? No,
Doch.
No, doch is just a...
Yeah, it's more like...
It's just a word.
It's just a word, yeah.
French has it, I know, but English doesn't have it. Yeah.
But sayings that you find particularly interesting in German...
The thing is, like, I can't think of them right now, but do I use quite a few of them? Things like Übung macht den Meister.
Übung macht den Meister.
Which is just like, is the equivalent of saying, like, practice makes perfect.
Practice makes perfect.
But I think people are trying to not say practice makes perfect now, so they're trying to say more realistic results. But
then there are also these conceptual words like... Wanderlust, yeah. Wanderlust.
But then, like how...
Heimweh.
Yeah, so in English we have homesickness, but and there's that word in German which is Heimweh. But then German also has a word for longing to be away, to be gone, which is Fernweh.
Fernweh, yeah.
So it's like desire to just not be at home, I guess, or like to... It's not really to travel, it's just to be... not where you are at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's more like in an extension way to say you want to be somewhere else.
You just need to get out.
Yeah, you need to. Yeah, you just feel like you're locked in, and then you want to be somewhere else, and maybe your life is at a point where you feel you should change something, and then you would say or use that word maybe more likely.
Yeah, because fern means far, and then weh is like pain, so it's like this longing pain for being far away,
beaming yourself up to somewhere else. But I find it interesting when I think about it now. So we have Heimweh and Wanderlust. So we have both. Like we wanna get, like, German has even like two of these words that are hard to translate, which means that we have this desire to go somewhere. I don't know if that is something for a national psyche, like we just want to go. Maybe because Germany is so small in comparison to Canada, and then everything is in reach, but then having such a desire for a big, spacious, vast country. I think that's something typical for German national psyche, something like that.
Yeah, I think the way language is formed, like which languages have what words, it definitely reflects on the culture and like what is like what is worth having a word for it. And yeah, it's pretty cool. I like noticing these differences and going through these lists of like words that exist in this language that don't exist in English.
Yeah, I think we mentioned it even in the first podcast where we said that there's this word from Inuit cultures that have different variations of the word for snow. Yeah, they have got 16, 17 words for
depending on the context and
so
stuff.
It's more like what you're used to, and when you're used to a lot of snow, you are more likely to see the differences between like certain variations of snowiness.
Yeah.
Snowiness.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, it was also also it's cool how you have different, like one thing that English doesn't really have that's like it's not as clear in English as it is for other languages, like the fact that you have like formal and informal. How like, because like
there's a fly.
Yeah, it keeps it. You know what? I hate flies, and every time it like lands on me, I'm just like.
That's a particular thing for you. You have a fear of flies.
It's not a fear. It's just a great disdain for them.
But when the fly approaches you, it will come and then.
Can you see my face? Just
yeah.
I don't know.
Go away.
I don't like
Mr. Fly.
Yeah, because they're always like, he's doing it right now. Look on the pillow. He's like rubbing his hands.
Yeah.
He's like
the scheming.
Scheming.
The scheming fly.
I hate it. And then they like you shoot them away and then they come back.
Maybe I should clear out the compost more often.
think it's also just the heat because it's not hanging up in the compost.
Yeah, last week was crazy. We had the biggest, or the
record.
The record. Aachen was the Germany's capital for heat capital, so to speak. So once we on Thursday, once we hit like 41 degree, but then we lost the record after one day.
I don't know if that's something you want to like brag about. Like, hey, look at us. It's too hot here, and not where you are.
We got the heat. It was crazy. Like the hospital, the company, we had AC, but then I walked outside for a bit and I felt I could faint. Like afterwards, like my body was so overheated, and I don't know how did you experience it?
How do you think?
You guys don't have
we don't have AC
or
well, like I brought my own fan from home. But like it's hard because it's really difficult for me to concentrate. But yeah, it was. I think what I was most worried about was that on Thursday I went to a hip hop workshop, and that was the hottest day of the week.
Oh yeah, Thursday.
And then that was like 2 hours of dancing. They did have a fan, but it was still pretty hot in there. And I remember after I registered for this workshop, Tim, the trainer, he was like, "Bring 2 tops because it's gonna be really sweaty." Like, and that was without the knowledge of like how hot it would be that day. It's just like the fact that we're going to be dancing a lot. Yeah. And I was just like, oh no. But it went well.
For the sweat.
I was surprised by how well I actually managed. I was sweating, but I wasn't like going crazy.
Yeah, I also went to my workout, and usually we are around 100 people doing like this interval training.
Were people there that day?
And that day we were just like, I think they counted the amount of people, so I think we were around maybe 26-ish people. Yeah. And it was insane. I was in between, like I felt my body would like implode or explode or just explode in general. And yeah, I was lying on the ground, and I felt like the sweat was like, you know, when people, how do you call, like when there's a murder and then there is a chalk, like
the chalk outline,
the chalk outline around you
of the body.
But it wasn't chalk; it was like sweat. Ew. So I could have easily slipped on my own sweat and died, and then you could just like repaint the chalk outlines. Anyways, but it was insane. Like
I remember like last year, was it last year or maybe 2 years ago, when I went to like Kontakthüpfen, into this like exercise thing, Fitness with Music is what it's officially called. It was like also like on this like plus 30 days or whatever, and I remember it was just like so hot that afterwards I couldn't even think. Like I felt like I was drunk. Like I was walking with my friends back to like towards the downtown area, and like I felt like we had to go down a set of stairs, and I was just like, I feel like I'm gonna fall down these stairs just because my brain wasn't working anymore.
Your legs are all shaky, and it's really insane. Like the heat waves are getting more frequent, I feel, and I know it more from Mediterranean countries where it's more like you're used to it. There's more wind, or when you're in the coastal area, you got more like air coming through. But here, when it's inside the city, I mean I really like the heat, but that was way too much. I thought I couldn't go even step out. I called my mom, and she was also like, wow, that I couldn't move. Like she has a condition with her, like cardiovascular condition, that she shouldn't move too much anyways, but for elderly people it's really dangerous.
It's really scary too. Yeah. And I know that it's always a common thing for like warmer countries to be like, oh, you guys can't handle the weather and stuff like that. But also you have to keep in mind that like the buildings here they're not built for these temperatures.
Exactly. That's exactly the thing.
It's really easy for people to overheat here because we don't have air conditioning, because it wasn't necessary before.
Yeah, they're not designed for it.
Yeah, and the buildings are also made to keep heat inside, especially in the winters. So, yeah, It's difficult. I'm really not a summer person either, too, so that just makes it a bit more difficult for me.
I always remember you were telling that your mom was saying that she doesn't like the heat so much because she grew up in a more tropical country.
Yeah.
And now I can actually understand it more because if it's like that kind of heat is it's just way too much to handle. At least when you work. When you're in vacation mode, you're like, okay, I can go out. You wear a sweater, like a t-shirt. Whereas here, you go to the office and you cannot wear shorts, right?
Yeah.
So you
wear your...
can. Yeah, you can. I cannot do it. Dang it.
That's what I get for being a programmer.
You're a programmer. I'm not.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think it's different with when you're on vacation, you can go as slow as you want. But if you are living in that climate, you have to learn how to be still efficient while you're working.
Yeah, exactly. You have to work, you have to fulfill your tasks. You got to go through the day, and then you're not supposed to like wander around and just like whenever you feel you take a nap or so. But yeah, now that's a small digression we took here from the words. But I think also when we go back to these conceptual words, what more comes in your mind? So we had this Wanderlust, we had the longing to be away, which is verzehren. Yeah, verzehren is a very nice one.
Can you describe it, please?
Verzehren is like a very how do you say, it's a very nice word. When you want to really say you want to go deep into a subject or something like that, but you want to suck it up with all flesh. Like I think
Give me an example.
Sich nach etwas verzehren means that you are actually longing for something so hard that you're kind of eating yourself with flesh and bones, I would say.
Eating yourself?
Yeah. Ich verzehre, because it's reflexive, and then you would say, ich verzehre mich, but it's kind of devouring.
That doesn't sound cute.
It doesn't sound cute, but it's a nice word. Nobody says
it's so cute that you want something so much that you'll eat yourself.
But you know what? Nobody said it's cute. It's just how
endearing. It's okay. I think we mean it's endearing when you mean it for another person.
You can say it. I think it depends on how you use it with your intonation. If you say like you said it, how would you say it? That is different, of course. But that is a cool word that we have this thing for special words and that we used for a while, right?
Yeah. What were other
but
words?
now the verzehren is over. What's my new word? Replacing it?
I don't know. You keep calling me a hoser now.
A hoser.
I feel like we went in a different direction.
Going from the hoser to verzehren. I know that Sehnsucht is a very nice word. I like it because it's in different languages. You have these, for instance, in Portuguese, you have a saudade, which means also it's like a feeling of longing.
Yeah.
And there is no equivalent in English, I would say.
It's like a painful longing.
Yeah, exactly. It's a painful longing.
Yeah.
It's empathetic and it's it's really cool.
It's kind of like looking for this beauty in suffering, sort of.
Beauty in suffering. That's a cool context.
But Sehnsucht, what is that?
Sehnsucht is it's like we said.
Like seeing search? Is that the words?
I don't know what's like the it's a good question. I don't know if it's where it comes from.
One thing I'm always like thinking about when it comes to languages is like with German, like my accent, for example. Mm-hmm. Like I wish I could not speak with not an accent sometimes, but I still have one when I speak it.
Probably, yeah. But I think that the American accent is very much not accepted, but it's very people really like it because it's like the American culture. It sounds really cool.
Danke, dass du mein Akzent magst.
That is the first time you talk in German. Keep going.
No.
But you're like, danke, dass ich
Danke.
danke, dass ich deinen Accent mag. Ich bin aus Aachen. Das ist meine Stadt.
Yeah.
Hier in Aachen. In Aachen.
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 Aachen. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think that especially too, because like in my head, I feel like I have an idea of how things should sound. And then I remember that one time that you recorded me while I was like at the eye doctor. And then I was just like, wow, I don't like how I sound.
Oh yeah, when I hear myself speaking, I also really don't like it.
Speaking English or speaking in general?
In general.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's normal though.
Yeah, I think you're always more critical to your own way of talking.
But also it's just because when you're talking, the sound vibrations are different because in your head, you're hearing it different. You're hearing it differently. You're hearing it through your body. Whereas if you hear it from like a recording, it's like an outward. So it's like this whole, what's it called?
Feedback loop or...
No. It's that phenomenon where you like things the more you're exposed to. Mere exposure effect.
Mere exposure.
So the fact that you hear your voice in this whole like through your head and through like the bones in your skull and stuff like that, you're more used to that sound. So that's why you like it better. But everybody else is already used to how you sound normally. Yeah. Same with like when you look at a picture of yourself, because the only images that we're used to seeing of ourselves is the mirror. And like our faces aren't 100% symmetrical. So once you see how you look in real life, which is just a mirror image of what you are, then you tend to not like it.
Interesting. Never.
Have you heard of that experiment? This is like another digression. There's like an experiment where they would show a person 2 pictures of themselves, like one would be them and then one would be them, same image, just flipped.
Okay.
And they would always pick the one that was mirror image because that's what they see in the mirror. But if they got their significant other to do the same thing, they would pick the non-reversed image.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But I also think that you have an idea. For instance, when you learn a different language, you probably have something that is like the best practice of you speaking that language. That's like the best thing you can ever reach. For instance, when I talk in English, there's something like I refer to somebody with like a really cool American accent, and I'm trying to imitate it. I don't know, but I don't know if it's. For instance, it could also be the content. So I really liked Matthew McConaughey as an actor. Yeah. So I really liked the way how he talks with this Texas accent. So remember when we first met, we were all, like making fun of like talking with the Texas accent.
I can't do a proper Texan accent.
And then I think it's then you compare yourself to speaking with this accent, and then. It's kind of disappointing to hear yourself not even remotely hitting that image that you have maybe from like
what you think you were saying.
How you would sound, for instance.
Yeah, I think also because like for me, I like learning accents and I would like to get good at it. And for me, I want to reach a point where I can sound like a native speaker in that accent or in that language, because it means to me that I have gained full control or full understanding of how that language works. So for me, that's like an indicator that, yes, I got it, like I understand it, but I'm still not there.
Yeah, I think that you set the bar pretty high. Anyway, anything you do is really you want to be like the best, like the top. But I think for German, it's hard because I think you would have to define first what is like the standard German, because there are so many different variations. Same for English. Like I started British English, then switched to the American English. So there's always mixtures possible, probably.
Yeah, when I first met you, I think you had a bit more of a British sounding accent, but I don't remember too much, and it was a bit, I don't know. But your accent had always been pretty mixed. Like it wasn't. I always have troubles defining what a German accent speaking English is, because it's very different from person to person. But to me, you didn't have the same patterns that I noticed in a lot of other Germans who speak English. You still have some things, but it's not. It's very. It definitely sounds influenced by other cultures and other languages. Well,
Maybe
like,
I should. The cool thing is actually, since I'm not like a native speaker, I can always pick the accent. So if I go to Australia, I can pick up the Australian accent.
Can you do an Australian accent?
No, I cannot do it.
Me neither.
Or the Scottish accent.
A Scottish accent.
Scottish.
Yeah, I can't. Like, the thing is, like, I like playing around with accents, but then when it comes to like having to, like actually say
Go
it.
for it. Say like, why don't we say something like in Scottish?
I don't know how to do a Scottish accent. It's like, it sounds so bad because like I know that if somebody who is Scottish hears this, they'll be like, girl, no.
Girl.
Yeah, this morning I was chatting with some of my Australian friends and I was like, I gave them my impression of my Australian accent, which I'm working on. And they're like, yeah, like you sound like an American who's trying to put on an Aussie accent.
Oh.
And I'm like, yeah. But I would like to get to a point where people are like, oh, cool, you can actually do the accent, but I can't.
I think Germans are very prone to assimilate very fast because German and English is the same language family, basically. So it's easier probably for a German speaker than for somebody coming from the Romanic languages. So whenever I meet Germans abroad, they are really good at like fitting in and speaking the respective language.
I think they definitely pick up like the accent a bit from whatever place they're like. I know Germans who have like, obviously like Germans who have lived in US or Canada, you can tell that they've like, I don't know, I think a lot of Germans will try to default to the American accent, but you can also tell if they've lived in like England or if they lived in Australia or if they've lived in Ireland.
For sure, yeah.
I remember when I went to buy jeans, I was asking for help from somebody, and like I did it in English because I was just like, oh, I don't know like how to do this in German, but he helped me in English, and I was just like, his English sound, it's German, but it also sounds Australian. So then afterwards I was like, where did you learn your English? And he told me he had lived in Australia, so I was like, I knew it.
There we go.
I got it.
But I feel other countries, I think German speakers are kind of in the middle, whereas Scandinavians, Dutch, some other countries, they are like better because they learn it from school. And they don't usually when they watch something, they don't, it's not dubbed or so
I think it depends.
I feel like could be that the system really makes them learn English because just like the native speaking population is a bit too small for relatively, and then they are kind of, it's kind of mandatory for them to speak very good English. Yeah,
especially with Swedish people, at least like so that, do you remember that Simone Yetch girl that I was talking about with who did like the Truckla? She does like the robots that.
Yeah.
So she's Swedish, right? But if you hear her, you would have no idea that, you would think that she's American, that she's like born and raised, but she's actually Swedish, and her accent is like really good. She really picked it up. And my friend, who I call Flam, she is also Swedish, and I think if you're not really paying attention, you would also think that she's like Canadian or something based on her accent. It's funny that her accent has a bit more Canadian because she says she watches a lot of Canadian shows. Yeah. I find that funny.
Yeah, I think it's always the cultural component where you're exposing yourself to one culture, and then you are trying to be as Canadian, as American as possible, and then you're trying everything to blend in and be part of that society. It's so amazing because like there's one like continent, like there's a whole different continent, but you have the opportunity nowadays to kind of change your identity towards something else. And that effect is really, it's amazing when you think about it. It was never possible before. Yeah.
For me, though, I just like, sometimes I wish I would like to learn different accents too, because I would just also sometimes like to get rid of my accent depending on where I am. So
why? Like I always tell you, it's really cool that, but
I just don't want to draw attention to myself. That's all. Like sometimes I just want to, I don't know, want people to just do their own thing and ignore me.
Yeah. But it's, in a way, it's also part of your identity, right? I mean, you yeah.
Yeah, but like even on the bus, for example, like if I'm speaking English, I can tell that people are like tuning in because they're hearing my accent. And sometimes I'd rather just speak German and not people care about what I'm doing. Like I don't like having that attention on myself.
You see their face like eavesdropping, and they're like,
yeah,
wow,
because
what's she saying?
yeah, because you can tell because you see them
she's
like
American.
I didn't notice at first, and then you told me.
Yeah.
But now I sometimes see it because I can see that people will suddenly like stop what they're doing, and then they'll find like an excuse.
Rapid eyes.
No, like they'll just like you can tell that they're sitting in like they're thinking.
Yeah, thinking.
And then they'll find an opportunity to try to like look over to see who I am.
It's like the cats with their ears.
Or like a horse.
Ears, like a horse.
Horses are just like bloop.
Horse. Like the satellite.
Yeah.
Like, turning around. What's she saying? Where's she from?
Like I guess it's cool that they find it interesting, but sometimes I just don't want people to notice me. I don't know.
But I think what I was also curious about these concept words. So we have Heimweh, Fernweh, Wanderlust. I know from Greek there are some cool words. I mean, there are too many to mention, but there was one concept that I really liked, and since I had ancient Greek at school, we talked about this concept. It's called eudaimonia, and it's like the good life. How do you live the good life? Mm-hmm. And I think it's pretty much from Plato, Socrates, like these old philosophers. And the concept goes like you can only judge a person until he's dead, actually. Mm-hmm. But when you think about it, it's such a simple concept, but it's just like a very holistic thing because you wanted, like, you cannot tell anybody like, was he happy? Like, what is a good life?
Yeah.
What is a happy life? Yeah. What does it mean? Like, but you cannot judge somebody for maybe like look at a pop star. Like, it's very much based on what is the instant moment. Like. Yeah. You feel like, wow, they have so much success. They are so much like wealth and partying and horsing around and everything. But then the whole concept from the ancient world is more like looking at the whole experience of his life, judging him like what is more about his honor, what is more like his contribution to the society, to the polis, stuff like that. So that is more like this ancient look at things from like the whole perspective. Yeah. And I talked with my Greek teacher, and he was so amazing. Like he really gave us such a different perspective. Yeah. And I kept thinking back about it because that's the way how you look at people. More from that perspective of this era is so amazing because you would not like prematurely judge on somebody, and it's I think it's a very wise and elaborate concept, and they have more. A different concept is it's called pothos, which is also like longing for. It's kind of like Fernweh, but it's more like in the way like you want to explore something. Like Alexander the Great with his like elephants, he wanted to explore different countries. Yeah. So it's like going away, going somewhere else, exploring. In a way, also conquering, but So I think that in the Greek way, you had a lot of these words that I would say they are conceptual words. It's not something you can define by terms. Nowadays, it's really hard to translate it even.
I know that I don't know if I showed it to you. I have like this infographic of a bunch of words that, like, depending on the emotion, there are different words that different languages have to define these. Like one's about love, for example, like love for somebody who doesn't love you back, that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
And I have to look it up, but I always like looking at these things and seeing the differences. I remember the one word I like. Fremdschämen.
Fremdschämen, yeah. That is a good one, yeah.
After I learned this word, I started to notice it a lot more. So
how would you describe it?
Fremdschämen is just, so it literally translates to like foreign, I guess, shame, which means not like you as a foreigner, like from a different country. It's shame experienced, so it's secondhand shame or embarrassment, basically. So if you see somebody who's like doing something that's like
really awkward,
really awkward, or something that's like embarrassing for them, like say if you watch like somebody getting rejected,
exactly, that's
and you're
what
just
I
like,
say,
and even though you're not even involved in this, you're just like, oh my god, I feel like so embarrassed for that person. Or
that is social, I would call it social rejection experience secondhand.
Yeah, I think
like
I think people started calling it secondhand embarrassment.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So firsthand would mean like you were.
But it's too long. That's what I like.
Yeah. So it's a concept.
Is perfect. Yeah. It's a concept.
Yeah. And I think even in German you have a verb for it. So.
Yeah, you can say das Fremdschämen.
Yeah.
Maybe,
no, you said. I think I remember hearing
they
my
just
friend,
say okay. Sorry.
She's like, ich schäme mich fern.
Fremd
is, or something like that. Also, ich fremdschäme mich. I don't remember.
Okay, you can.
I don't remember, but I remember somebody used it as a verb, and I was like, oh.
We should introduce it into the English language, like as the German word would be cool.
Like
so
how you have wanderlust.
Yeah.
What are other ones? Yeah.
But just to add it, I would say the people use it more like there is a really awkward situation where you see somebody was pushing hard with rejection, whatever. And then somebody would just say, Fremdschämen, like something like that. It's just like this word and then you know it.
Yeah, I guess it's just
like the noun more.
It's also like when people just say awkward, but I think like Fremdschämen
exactly.
is a very like specific.
Yeah, it's more specific. It's more tailored to one situation,
like
where
awkward,
cringeworthy. Yeah, something like cringeworthy and awkwardness or awkwardness. But
the word awkward is awkward.
Awkward is an English word that
Germans use all the time.
So
Germans use the word awkward all the time.
Yeah, so much. Yeah, awkward.
What I like doing is that when I'm speaking German, and even like if there's an English word that is often used by Germans, I will say it in a German accent. So Germans, this is not like an actual German word, but Germans started to say sorry.
Sorry, yeah.
But I say
nice. They say nice so much.
Yeah, I think that's
nice.
I was talking about that with my friends, and I think it's an international thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's also.
Or no, maybe not nice, but they'll say same.
Same, yeah.
But no, like for example, if I instead of saying sorry, I'll be like sorry.
Sorry. More like sorry.
Sorry. But do you need to say it sorry?
No.
Okay.
I just.
Or like
overdid it.
Instead of saying cool, I'll be like cool.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'd be like, this is cool. Like.
But
if I said it in an English accent, I'd be like, this is cool. And like it sounds totally different.
I read that in maybe when we have, or do you know some Turkish speakers? Because I read somewhere about these, like the nicest words that cannot be translated, like conceptual words and stuff like that. There was a very cool Turkish word that cannot be translated, which has something to do with the moonlight or something like that. Like a bright moonlight night or something.
You could ask Yassi.
It's very poetic. Yeah, we can ask Yassi. Maybe she knows it.
One word. Oh yeah, I like the term in French. Esprit de l'escalier.
Ah, yeah.
It's like this. It's like spirit of the stairs or whatever.
Spirit of the stairs.
And it's basically when you have thought of a comeback to like an argument after that argument is already over. So like when you go, I should have said this. Like.
Okay.
Like, have you ever had a fight with somebody and then you
afterwards you're like, man, I should have reacted differently, and then
no, not like
okay,
not like it's not remorse for what you said. It's saying like, if I had said this, this would have like been really cool.
Yeah, that's nice. I know that in Russian, there are definitely a lot of these conceptual words. One is like the Oblomovщина, which is from a novel, Oblomov, who's like this kind of lazy landowner, and he's basically he's using his servants, and it's also more like a conceptual word, maybe in the way that not about like the Russian national character, but it's something like if you are rich, you make others work for you. And but we will have a good friend over. Maybe he can explain it, because he's Russian. He can explain it to us. That would be cool, because I feel we should know more about Russia. That would be cool to have somebody from our age or from our generation really explain it to us, and to get rid of all the freaking stereotypes. And yeah, there is a good
stereotypes
about Russia.
I remember too, like I already had my reservations like with Russians, just because I don't know anything about. I don't know Russian. Well, now I do, but like I remember when I first met them, I was just like, I don't know what to say around them and things like that.
Yeah, but Russia, if you've been there, it's a fascinating culture. It's just so different that you
I just always had this
really have to go out of your comfort zone and question everything you know about people and about like
for me, I just had this like history. Inferiority kind of like complex that like I would always, whenever I like, because I know that like Russians are so like, well, like not all of, but a lot of them that I meet are very like well educated, and they know so much about culture and history. And then there's me, who's just like, hey, and they're always like in our classes, they would always be the ones who are like super good at math. So I was just like, help.
help, the Russians are coming.
They're better at everything than I am. So I would always be so like sheepish around them.
Sheepish.
It's like when you're like a sheep.
Chicken.
No, a sheep.
Sheepish.
Yeah.
Sheepish. That's interesting. Never used that word. No, I know it, but
like a sheep is like shy.
Yeah, sheep is shy.
I'm just shy around people in general, so.
Yeah, sometimes you are, but I think if you know the people, you're more extroverted.
Oh yeah, there's a huge difference between how I act around people I don't know and how I act around people I know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Let's give the audience an example.
Let's give the audience an example of like how I act around people.
Yep.
I think people who like I think a lot of people find it weird to believe that I was incredibly shy. I think I've gotten a lot better over the years, but in high school, for example, I could talk to my classmates, but the minute it came to like meeting somebody's friend for the first time, I would just be like, hi. And then all of a sudden I can't think of any conversation. So then I would just be like standing there awkwardly. And
is it more like social anxiety, or?
It's not anxiety. It's just that I don't know what to say to people.
Okay.
And I think I had to slowly learn, like I learned this through online dating, how to actually make a conversation with people, even if it's about like something stupid, like not stupid, but just something that's trivial. Like, oh yeah, like what do you study? Like things like that. I was already like scared of asking, like, or just being like, oh yeah, so like, how do you like what do you think of school? How are like, I don't know. I think I was always inhibited by my fear of what people would think of my questions, and if they're like stupid questions.
But do you like, what I'm interested about is when I came to the US for the first time, I realized everybody's talking so much, like random talk, small talk.
Yeah, small talk is huge.
It's a huge thing in the Northern American culture, whereas here in Germany it's a bit more reserved. Mm-hmm. Now I think it's more a thing, but still there's no small talk culture, right? Or how do you experience it?
It's different. Like, I think among people our age, small talk is fine, and it's becoming a lot more normal than it was. Maybe, I don't know, but
60 years ago.
I don't know. The thing though is that like I find that small talk is not. I feel like what the small talk that I hear is very appropriate. So like when somebody is making small talk, they genuinely just want to like make a comment about something. Like nothing feels forced, I guess.
Yeah.
But then again, like when you go to Canada and you go to the grocery store, you're gonna notice this because they'll be like, "Hi, how are you? Is everything okay?"
Yeah, no,
and like I think Germans might think that it's fake because maybe they don't want to go into details if you're feeling like sad, but I think they genuinely want to like just be friendly. So it's just different perceptions of what people
so
think.
So when you're at the counter and they say, hey, how's it going? You're like, yeah, I had a horrible day.
Like you can.
I had a problem with my mom had a disease or something like that. You wouldn't say that, right? So people, I think they misunderstand.
Would you do that?
No. I mean, people misunderstand the whole concept. It's also like this. Maybe that is the general. Like in German, you have these concept words, and in English, I'm struggling to find these words so much. But I think the communication is in itself is a bit different.
I think it's the communication's not in the vocabulary. It's how the person says it. So, like, you can tell if someone's just being polite, like, hey, how's it going? Like, maybe you're like, whatever. They're just like, that's like the equivalent of them just saying hi.
There's no need to answer to it, right?
But they say, oh, how's your day today? Then they actually want to know. Like, if you're not feeling good, then they'd be like, oh, like, they might feel bad that they can't do anything about it. And I think that's where the discomfort comes from. Mm-hmm. But I think people genuinely want to have, like, if you do say, like, oh, I'm not doing so good, like, they might be a bit, oh, okay, but maybe that's just me personally, because I've never really said, how are you, and not wanting to hear if it's bad.
Yeah.
So I think it just depends on person to person. Maybe some people...
So you say that, and then it's up to the respondent to say, like, there's no need to respond to it, but if you feel like you want to do that, you can do it. And I think it's also a cool concept, like, that you have to get used to when you're more from, I think I read something that German, Dutch, Scandinavian culture is probably like the most direct way, which is also good because like you know pretty much like what's going on. But if you do something wrong, they will immediately say, yeah, you did this wrong, and then you don't want to like offend people, right? And I experienced this a lot, that people really feel offended, and then it impacts like the whole social interaction. Whereas in other cultures, like let's say Asian cultures in general, it's very much about like saving face, being polite, being having these certain hierarchy standards. Also in Arabic culture, and Latin American culture, the social communication at first is pretty much based on small talk, right? And also in like Southern European culture. So yeah, I think it's good to just know it, and so you're not like not getting stuck in a wrong pattern that can lead you somewhere where you are in a situation that you could have at least avoided at first.
Yeah.
How is it in like, do you know something about like Filipino culture? Like how is it there? Because it's also like a mix of
there's small talk, yeah.
Spanish, American influence.
It's very social, yeah.
Very social, yeah.
But there also is, like in customer service, there's also a lot of like making sure that you're showing like respect for the customer, things like that. So
that's more from the American side of like, it was like the colony of the US, or
yeah. So like when I would go shopping, they would call me ma'am every time.
Ma'am.
Be like, good morning. So it'd be like, good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. Like they do that a lot. Yeah. So I think there is like this familiarity when it comes to like chatting with people. If you ask, the thing though, like I think I would need some input from like my family in the Philippines or any Filipino friends of mine, because I only know the tourist experience of that. I don't know what it is like as somebody who lives there. But yeah, I'm really interested to see what you'll think of when we go to Canada. But you've already been to the States, so I think you have an idea of like what to experience.
Yeah, I've been to Canada also, so I think I'm used to it. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the trip, and then. Yeah, we are heading out. Let's do a podcast from Canada. That would be cool. Then we can talk about our experiences. Maybe we can also let somebody from your family do some talking.
Yeah, that would be cool. I have to talk to them still about that, but
also we want to have more like guests. That would be cool.
Yeah, I think it would be really nice to have guests, because it's just like it gives
celebrities from Aachen.
Celebrities. Oh yeah, we've already talked about this, haven't we?
We can invite. Who would you invite to the podcast? Like hypothetically, if you can invite anybody.
I think it depends. anybody.
Yeah.
Like for me, I think it just depends on like the topic that I'm interested in. I do want to have like an episode about like nonviolent communicate.
Oh yeah. No, sorry.
I think for me, I wanted to find experts in. Yeah, Tobias has like a celebrity crush on Rihanna. That's why he mentioned her. No, for me, it's like if there's a topic that I'm really interested in, I would definitely want to hear like an expert in that field and talk about it. Cool. You wanted me to talk about you wanted me to talk about like
Rosenstein.
Yeah.
He wrote the book on, I think, Rosenberg,
Yeah.
not Rosenstein.
The guy who wrote the nonviolent communication book.
Is he still alive?
Yeah.
Maybe you can invite him. Mr. Rosenberg, would you come to our podcast? Sit on our couch. Please take a seat.
Yeah.
Clear the table.
I think like there are especially a lot of like the YouTubers and stuff that I follow or podcasters that I listen to. I don't know. It'd be cool to have conversations with them, but I don't know. In terms of celebrities, I don't know. I kind of.
Belle?
Huh?
Belle? The girl that you follow on YouTube.
Oh my God. I don't follow her.
Okay.
He's talking about Belle Delphine. The girl who sold her bathwater.
Ah, yeah. Right.
No, I'm not interested.
Okay.
Well, actually, no. Maybe no. I think I would. I would be cool.
It would be super interesting. Yeah. Why not?
I think I actually think she's really cool because there's definitely a sense of self-awareness about her that.
I find it just fascinating to have other people here. That would be really cool. No matter if they are like. If they are like from our friend circle or they just like should show us a different perspective, maybe a Russian or a Mexican, Scandinavian perspective would be cool. And yeah, I think it's always cool to have any sort of exchange. Always makes you think, like I keep thinking about when we do the podcast afterwards, I keep thinking about what did I say, what did I learn, stuff like that. So, and if we have more people coming here, and it would be really nice to have more of an exchange.
Do you listen to a lot of podcasts?
Yeah, just like the standard one, like Joe Rogan, something like that. But okay. I listened to one that is a German one where they have one topic in depth analysis, but it's more about like different like social matters, social affairs, stuff like that. Like also sometimes like artists. There are some good German podcasts, but not too many, to be honest.
Yeah,
so we can fill the gap.
Yeah,
we are half German, half American.
I'm not American.
No, our podcast, we can also do it in German.
Okay. But I'm not
theoretically.
American.
Not an American then.
I always like struggle with this now because I'm like, I know that everybody, whenever I think of like Canadian American accents, I just group it into American accents because depending on where you are, it's pretty similar. But then when it comes to like someone saying that I'm American, I'm like, oh no.
No.
That's where you're wrong.
You're wrong. Man, you're wrong with that.
Oh, heck no.
Heck no. Let's ring the bell. I gotta go to...
Okay, so we're done for today?
Yeah, we are done, and next time, people coming, and
Thanks for listening to the Genies podcast.
Yeah.
I'm Jeanine, and this is Tobias, and we'll see you next time.
Hit the like button, smash it. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye, guys.